Hello, welcome to the Pretty Intense podcast. On the show today is the lovely and beautiful LeAnn Rimes. She has sold over 48 million records. She has 2 Grammys and 12 Billboard Music Awards, and the list seriously just goes on and on and on. She has a new album out called God's Work. Really, I mean, of course, I would love to help her promote it because the album's amazing. The Wild is my favorite song, if you want to know. Really, she's just really open. She's spiritual, she's deep, she's introspective, and those are all really good ingredients for a good conversation and someone that can help others. And truly what you'll learn is how much she wants to help. There's so much more than just the music to her. She has a lot of stories to tell and a lot of lessons that she's learned, and she's dealt with everything from anxiety to family dynamics, relationship dynamics. Today on the episode, she shares so many of her lessons. It really resonates. I got goosebumps many times throughout the interview, just with sort of that universal, yes, there's so much truth in this and there's so much power. So I hope you feel it too. Please enjoy the episode. And if you like it, please hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. And I always love to read your comments on what resonated with you. Thank you for doing this, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
I'm excited to talk to you. I feel like you've had so much life experience, and you've gone through so much stuff, and you're just deep. Like it's just fun to talk to somebody that contemplates things, that is introspective, that does the work. I mean, that's just not always super common.
It's true. I love having these conversations. They really fulfill me in so many ways. I love going on podcasts like this because I don't know, it's just I don't have these kind of conversations every day, and it's I don't know, it's just nice to talk to people of like mind and like heart, and yeah, get into life.
Yeah.
Life. I mean, that's really what it is, like contemplating life.
Okay, well, first thing to like talk about is we both just turned 40 this year. So
Oh, you did too.
yeah, my birthday was March 25th and yours was just
Oh,
a
nice.
few months after, right? What was
Yeah.
your July?
August 28th.
August.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like it's sort of it's a mark in time. So were you dreading 40? Were you excited about 40? What was the vibe with 40?
I was excited about 40. I actually enjoy a new decade. And I've always enjoyed turning older because I was so young when I started and people made such a big deal of my age and no one ever wanted to let me grow past 13. So I feel like 40 felt like I was really stepping into my womanhood for the first. I mean, I felt like these last 5 years of my life, I've really been stepping into my womanhood, but really at 40, it was kind of that mile marker for me to really allow myself to feel fully a woman. And I was very excited about it. But now I don't feel any different. Like nothing changed. I was waiting for some like big moment. I was like, oh no, that was nothing happened.
What does feeling like a woman, what does that mean?
I think I just allowed. There's many things there. Yeah, I feel like I'm a better. There's a mothering piece for that for me, like a feeling like I'm taking care of myself, like taking care of my child's inner child self, um, where I feel like I've really taken on the responsibility of that. I don't have children of my own. I have 2 stepsons, but and I one of the reasons why I've never had children is because I've had so much trauma in my life and also generational trauma passed down that I was just like, I don't wanna bring a child into this world until I know I can I can do it differently. Now, at 40, thinking about that, I know I could do it differently now, and I don't know, that door hasn't completely closed, but, for a long time, it was just this absolutely what's been passed down to me, and, I didn't want the responsibility either of, being, of mothering in that way, because I didn't feel prepared, and now I feel like I'm doing it for myself, and I've taken on that responsibility, and it feels really good, and I also feel like another piece of that is, really just being sourced and driven from the inside out instead of, external validation being the most important thing. And I feel like that, like not giving a shit more and more has really, like 40's really kind of given me, I don't know, even more depth in that area of just really feeling internally sourced, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine a lot of that comes from the caretaking that you're doing, because I resonate so much with that, like mothering
Mm,
yourself. And, we've too much of a long story, but part of my sort of trauma has related to obviously mom and dad, but the mom, and
mm,
really that element being that needing to have my own back, because she didn't necessarily have me emotionally taken care of. And
mm.
yet that's only because she wasn't doing that for herself. So I was just
Right.
repeating that pattern, which would
Yep.
put me into a pattern of being with the wrong people that didn't take care of me right. But that was okay because I abandoned that anyway. So
Right.
um right. So what do you feel like? What are you doing? What are you doing to take care of your inner child? What are some of those little activities,
Oh.
or like messages or practices? Because I feel like this is sometimes for some people this is kind of sounds weird, or it doesn't make sense to
Mhm.
them. But maybe when you articulate some of the things that you do and some of the decision making that you do differently now, it might make sense what you're talking what is actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, I look at myself as, a whole being of, all of these different aspects of mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, well-being. And how am I filling those up every day? Am I giving myself rest? Am I, taking care of my physical health has been something that I've kind of put on the back burner for a really long time. And I grew up with psoriasis from the time I was 2. And if I wasn't, I thought sickness was kind of just a part of my life and always would be. So it's almost like I gave up on feeling any better than just okay. Um, and 6 to 8 months before I turned 40, I was like, that's got to shift. So I started taking care of that aspect of myself. And I think I just look at all of those buckets every day and I'm, am I giving myself what I'm needing in those areas of my life? And I prioritize that. Like I think the biggest thing is prioritizing myself and my care. And, being in the business that I've been in for so long, it's been in constant motion. I have been the center of it all. It's all been me, but at the same time, I haven't put myself first. It's been everything else has come first. So I think have started to recognize like I have needs, and I want to feel good. And really, I think the rest piece for me too is, like I said, as much in motion as I've been my whole life. Rest has not been something that I have even felt comfortable with.
Right?
And like I just took a nap before we got on here for 30 minutes. I was like, oh, I feel so good. So I think it's those things. I think it's one thing I've been doing, for my own mental well-being too, and the child in me is, pick one thing a day that makes me really happy. And I love going on a bike ride. I had used to love jumping on a trampoline when I was a kid. So I have a rebounder that I like will jump on for 20 minutes. And
Oh,
it just any like 20, it could be 10, 20 minutes, like anything that just uniquely brings me joy. Um, I really try to focus on one of those things a day, especially when I'm really, really busy during my day.
wow.
So it's so simple. Like they're really simple things. It's just the commitment to them and being consistent with them. And I think that adds up at the end of the day.
Was there were there things or a way of being when you were a kid that you really weren't allowed to do or be? And some of it might have
Mm.
been direct,
Yeah.
but some of it might have just been an energetic, like, motion of stuff that was happening. But
Oh god,
what were
that could be
those?
its own podcast. I mean, I
Aw.
was an only child. I was a pretty blonde girl in the South, like, and I was raised Southern Baptist, and there was always this idea of perfection. And as an only child who grew up in a very volatile household, trying to take care of everybody's feelings. Um, I was, I was a performer. And that was the way to make people happy. And so I, I think I learned, I had this idea for so long. I'm still working on it now that I'm bad. Like growing up, and like I said, in church where we're all told we're, sinners and I have organized religion has its own place and it works for some people, but for me, there were just these really underlying, very sad messages that I very much internalized.
Mm.
And I'm still like, that's one of my deep core beliefs that I carry around that I'm working with is I'm bad.
Mm.
And um so I didn't have a chance to, I think, fully be me, like without trying to fit into everybody's box around me, the idealized child and not like the real child.
Yeah.
So I think now I've, loving all the complexities of myself is such a challenge. I have to allow those messy parts of myself to have some playtime.
Yeah.
Because I don't really think that was, and I don't think a lot of people around me were aware of any of this. But those are the messages I received as a kid, and very much internalized that.
Those things that happen when we're kids are so influential, and they might not always be direct words, but they're just a feeling of like, maybe even you were going on tour, but you were off like playing with Barbies, or you were like on the swing set or something like that. And it was like, get back here. And so it's like, you're bad
Yeah.
because you're not doing whatever you're supposed to be doing. And those things
Yeah.
leave such deep, deep imprints. We obviously share a doctor, which is super fun. So I want to talk about that health stuff. As you said, you turn 40 and, you work on those things and psoriasis. And I didn't know that. Is it fixed? And like, what have you learned about that? What have you learned in that realm? Because man, that's a giant rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah, it is a rabbit hole, and I feel like I keep going deeper and deeper down it, like, every day. Yeah, it's, I don't even know where to begin there.
Why'd you
You know,
call
I
like, why'd you
well,
get
I
in?
called Mindy because I wanted to work on my hormonal health. So, I had I had been on birth control for years, as so many women are, and, yeah, it was awful, and, one day I decided to just take myself off of it, and I my body kind of went right back into its normal rhythms, but not really. Like it was it was kind of a yes and no. I had periods, but then I don't think my all of my hormones were balanced and syncing up properly. And no one had ever taught me about hormonal health at all. Like we're not taught any of these things as kids. And so like I said, I knew going into 40 in this new decade, I know there's a lot of changes that we go through as women. I got on the phone with her. She's so funny because she's like, oh, sometimes when I work with celebrities, she's kind of like, I thought, I'm probably going to get on the phone with her and talk to her like for 45 minutes, and that'll be it. And then literally, I've been boxing, I box with her like every day. She's become like one of my dearest friends, and we found our way into each other's lives. And I honestly, I've never had someone walk me through health in such a profound way. And, it's gone from hormonal health to, healing my gut to working on thyroid stuff, like to, yeah, just figuring all the pieces of the puzzle out. And, I've discovered so much about my body that I didn't even know. And, having psoriasis from so young, there's so much inflammatory stuff there. And no, my psoriasis isn't, we haven't really gotten to the root of that, but I feel like through other things, we're getting to the root of what, might have triggered that as a child. So, um, yeah, you do open Pandora's box, and there's days when I'm like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting so close to feeling, even better, and I've come so far. Like I actually keep a list of little markers that I see of how I'm
Smart.
healing. And I just started doing that recently because it's so easy to lose sight of
Yeah.
the tiniest of transitions that are happening. And Yeah, I've come a long, long way in 8 months, and I'm still on that journey. So, yeah, I wanna feel good in my 40s.
I mean, I had this
Oh.
goal, I was gonna, like, look and feel my best when I turned 40, and instead it was the fucking opposite, and I'm like, "Oh god." I mean, truly the opposite. What's made the biggest difference?
Well, I have to say one of the biggest things, I have a oxygen chamber here in the house, and that's changed me a lot. I can tell a difference in my brain. I can tell a difference in my mood. It's definitely a game changer for me, especially when I come off the road, like to just try to get back into balance and back into normal life. So that's one of the most profound pieces. And we now have a sauna here, which I'm really digging the sauna. Like that when you start learning about, like, I've learned about all the neurotransmitters, and when you start learning about what does what, and I'll be in a bad mood and I'll get in the sauna, and 40 minutes later I'm like, oh, I feel a lot better. Like all the serotonin and dopamine and everything starts to, like,
Wait till you get the cold plunge too. I just finally got mine delivered, and I was in it for about 5 minutes after the sauna today, and my body was numb after that. It's 45 degrees is what I've decided to set it at, and then as the blood comes back, it's like just blotchy, like your whole skin is like, looks like you've been sunburned but somehow patching back together again. But yeah, those things can be super powerful. I have a hyperbaric as well, and god damn it, I just can't get my ass in that thing. I am
it's
just
It's hard. It's hard. You know what the trick for me has been is going in it even for like 20 minutes at a time,
oh,
because that that was a Mindy trick. Mindy's like, because I was the same way. I'm like, I'm so anxious in this damn thing. She's like, just pop in there 20 minutes at a time. And so 20 minutes became like 45 minutes. And then 45 minutes sometimes is like an hour. And then I'm like, oh, it's not so bad. So I
right.
do it in the morning, first thing when I get up. So I'm not like, I don't have a lot of energy running through my body. And that seems to be my key to at least getting in there every day.
Yeah, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Just get in there for 20 minutes, which basically means pressurize and depressurize. And
Right. It's true.
you talked about anxiety, and I know that that's a part of your life. And I'm curious, like I feel like we could go down a pretty deep dive on just the mental side of things, and just, where did that come from, and do you know where that stems from? Because this is an area of life I'm really interested in, and I really want to understand better, because I'm a bit of a firsthand learner, and I've had a couple times, like 3 or 4 times, actually about 3 times in my life, I felt true anxiety because I knew I couldn't escape the thought. It was like you couldn't choose a good thought. It was like heart racing more. And actually, when I was doing such heavy detoxing with Mindy, we were
Oh,
doing
that's
like
whew.
2 full dropperfuls of that, like blood brain barrier stuff a day,
Oh, yes.
doing like suppositories
Is that
every night.
Cido?
Yeah, Cyto. I was doing
Oh,
Cyto,
phew.
2 full droppers a day,
Oh my God.
suppositories every night,
Yes.
and like every other like pill, and every other modality, including like red light and the
Yep.
hyperbaric and the sauna and like I just stacked a million things. And I finally hit a wall, because she said, let me know how your mood's doing. And I've just got this like weird resiliency, and I was like, fine, I'm fine. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was literally depressed. And
Yeah.
so I kind of just stopped doing everything. But it's such, everybody, pretty much everybody will deal with it on some level, but some, of course, deal with it on a really regular basis. And I just have so much empathy. What's been your excavation of that energy?
Ooh, there's so many things. Funny thing about Saito, I actually, I'm of that thought. If one works, then two must be great. So, right? And so she's like, just do like 5 drops of Saito to, like, slow. And then I'm like, 1 dropper full, and I was in the fetal position because it was all that mercury. It was like coming out of me, which mercury causes so much anxiety. Which I at one point had a heavier mercury load, which was definitely feeding that. So yeah, I feel you on the Cyto. Um, I I think there's multiple sources. I actually just went to Dr. Amen and did the whole brain
What'd you
scan.
think? What'd you think?
I was fascinated. It was very interesting. It's very interesting to see my brain. I have like zero dopamine going on when I'm not taking. I take medication for it's called Vyvanse, which is a stimulant. Because at one point, I basically get into these freeze states of low depression and where I can't move, and so I take a very low dose of it to get me out of it. And he did a brain scan, one on it and one off of it, and off of it I have like zero dopamine. So I think when my dopamine pathways were being created as a child, I was wearing those things out left and right. And so my body just doesn't right now doesn't create it on its own. So the medication actually really helps my brain go from having this really sleepy brain to actually being,
Rest. So good.
yeah, it is.
Andrew Huberman really dives into dopamine really well.
Yes,
If you
I've
want,
listened to
like,
his stuff.
okay, cool.
Yeah. But the thing about the medication too, though, it really activates my basal ganglia, which is my whole anxiety issue. So that's already very activated in me, and that just kind of multiplies it. But so I have there's it was great to see reasons why I have this kind of freeze
Yeah.
state, depression, and then this anxiety. I also have a lot of like some pretty severe PTSD in my brain from just life. And so I think that's part of it too, just trauma that, is still in my nervous system that I'm working through now. So I feel like I've gained a little bit more clarity around
Mhm.
what's going on with my brain,
Mhm.
which for
Good.
me is really helpful because I don't feel like there's something wrong with me. It's just like, oh, this is now I have a clear picture of what's going on when my anxiety is activated. I
Yeah.
know what's activated in my brain. And so I through all his testing, I realized I have a very strong negativity bias toward life.
That he
So,
can see that? He can see that?
well, when in all the tests that we took, like there's a whole thing
The measuring with the
yeah,
test
all the measurements. Yeah,
online.
I have a super strong negativity bias, and so I've literally now for the last, I guess it's been about 2 weeks. I have a morning routine of I do a Kundalini meditation called Kirtan Kriya, which is like a 12-minute meditation that's supposed to really activate your frontal lobe. So working with that. I have a gratitude list that I do morning and night, and I actually think of things that I'm grateful for, and then I let it go, and I sit in that feeling of it. Um, I have been really focused on, like I said, I have that list of things, of ways that I'm noticing my body and my mind, and things are changing. Um, I was watching Jonah Hill did a documentary recently about him and his therapist. I can't recall his therapist's name at the moment. It's a fantastic documentary. I highly recommend it. But in this, I just watched it last night, and I started this practice this morning, and I love it. He talks about putting the next pearl on the string,
Hmm.
and he was saying that no, like that meaning if you got up and got out of bed, that's a pearl on the string. If you brushed your teeth, that's a pearl on a string. Like if I did this podcast, it's a pearl on a string. And so um it was no pearl, no thing is good or better than the other thing. So it's like basically you just get up every morning and you're going to put a pearl, keep putting pearls on the string. And I started a list this morning. I love lists because I'm a Virgo. I
Course.
started a list this morning of like how I'm noticing like all the things, how I'm putting my pearls on my strings today. And it's great because it's helping. I'm noticing all these little things that I'm doing are really helping train my mind to look for the good, look for positive. It's positive reinforcement. It's positive reinforcement of my healthy habits. And for someone that has a really strong negativity bias and also likes to live in the future and plan everything, which causes a lot of anxiety, and out of the present moment, I think all of these little tools, so simple, really kind of help me focus on what's good in my life. And I've been doing, like I said, these little practices for a couple weeks, and I can tell a difference, like a major difference.
That's a really good practice. And for a Virgo, for sure. I have my son is in the 6th house, which is Virgo. And so I am very empathetic of Virgos because, well, there's two very dualistic sides to a Virgo. That
Yes.
one is that there's a lot of aspects, but one is that you really truly accomplish really incredible stuff, really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of it is you don't really see your own greatness, and you don't really tend to give yourself credit for the greatness and see it. So I'm like, would it be better to achieve a lot of greatness and feel it, or achieve greatness and feel it, or like maybe even less greatness but actually feel something, or more greatness but never feel it? I'm like, I'm not really sure what's better.
I mean,
very
I
Virgo.
think the achieving less greatness and being able to actually feel it would be better. I mean, I've achieved incredible things, so have you, and it's like if you're not living in it, if you're not absorbing it, then it really doesn't mean shit. Like like if you can't appreciate it.
This is just a game of perception. Like the human existence is just game of perception. There's a great guy named Kashif Khan who owns a company called the DNA Company, and he sort of analyzes your DNA and is able to tell you from all different aspects of your wellness where you are good, where you're bad, where you need to work on things. So that could be a really cool thing.
Is that the guy Mindy knows?
Yeah.
I have the test here. That's like one on my list of things to do.
So great because, something like you were talking about dopamine, I have the highest amount of dopamine receptors genetically you can have. So everything brings me joy. Everything.
Oh my God. Switch brains for a day.
We could blend them together. I feel like
I don't want to give you mine. Can I just take yours for the day?
Well, I'd love to trade it in for a little bit more feeling, a little bit more. But something like that, or just whatever other genetic thing. It's such a cool test, and it's such a thing of the future. I think so many people will do. But okay, cool. You should definitely do it. And next up, so what do you like? What do people not understand about anxiety?
It's something that I feel is very complex, especially for women, because I know, like, if my progesterone's low, I told my husband, it was like 2 days ago, I was in right after ovulation, estrogen's dropping, and I looked at him and I'm like, if you could be in my head right now, it's like hell. I was like, it's like hell. Like when your progesterone, you know, I'm making enough progesterone, like I get body anxiety to where everything in me vibrates. It's like someone plugged me into a wall socket. And it is, no matter what I do, I can breathe, I can meditate, I can do all the things, but nothing works. And I think, there's all these tools that we have. And at some point, sometimes nothing works. And I think the people around us have to be compassionate to that. Because there's just some days that, there's so many, like I said, so many components. There's hormonal component. There's if I'm really triggered by something, that from trauma, which seems to be for me now, I think my anxiety is definitely, there's a physical component to it, as far as like I said, hormonally, I think, is a huge piece for me that definitely, exacerbates the problem. So yeah, I think people don't realize how layered and complex anxiety can be, and how many different triggers we can have, what can be triggering it, because there's so many layers to it.
What's the best way to love someone through that?
Oh, I appreciate it when my husband allows me to verbalize it and let it be. And not try to fix it, but just sees me, like, that I can say in my mind is a freaking living hell right now, and he's okay with it, and it doesn't we can still go about life, but and I think that's really, it's good for me to be able to verbalize it too. Um, so, I don't feel like I'm trapped in my own hell, because I think for a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of people relate to that. For me, it feels like I'm trapped inside of a cell. And if I don't express to people what's going on around me, it feels so lonely.
Yeah.
So I think, just allowing for that person to express what's going on inside is, for me, it's really helpful and cathartic, because as soon as I vocalize it, it's like the elephant just got, is now out of the room, and
Yeah.
there's some space around it.
Well, anxiety, correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of isolating in and of itself. Like it's
Hmm.
a mental loop. So if you're already kind of in your head, and then if you can't verbalize, it's like really isolating.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, sometimes the body anxiety can be so intense,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden I will get in my head about just the fact that I can't control what's going on. So, accepting acceptance is huge, knowing that I do have tools, um, and knowing that it will pass. Like, that's been one of the biggest things for me. I know everybody's like, "Oh, everything's temporary," and my mind goes to, "Yeah, but how long is it gonna take? How long is this gonna last?" And now it's like, "Okay, I can ride this wave."
Hmm.
And, I think that acceptance is huge, because I have started to notice that it really is a wave, and it will come and it will go.
Hmm. Hmm. I've heard you talk about dancing before. Is that, and
Mhm.
like exercise, I've heard is a really good thing, like getting the body to move and kind of
Yep.
blowing off some of the energy through movement.
Mhm.
But I think somatic healing is really also, along with EMDR, I feel like are really some very powerful modalities that I think will become more and more common. So do you, I was just at this festival, and we did they called it Fluent Body, and they kind of wanted you to think it was maybe yoga, but you
Right.
really just got there and you just sort of flailed your body around for an hour. And let me tell you, I get why dancers are fit AF, because it was a lot of work. But just being able to move your body and like use like voice and sound.
Mhm.
Do you do that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Sound
Good.
is so powerful. And
Well,
it's so
clearly, I mean,
interesting.
your voice, like, hello.
Yeah, but that's what I was gonna say. It's so interesting, because I've always used my voice for other people, and it was the last place I went for myself. And so that's why I started chanting, and now one of the practices that I do is I'll just go make sound. I don't need it to sound pretty, because, all my sound usually comes out sounding pretty, and I usually am
I bet.
controlling it in some way. And I think I love that you talk about flailing your body around. It's so nice to just let our bodies and our voices move and have movement and create sound, because I think there's so much freedom in just the expression of the energy that wants to come through us, and not focusing on how it has to look. And for someone who's been so much in the public eye my whole life, and I've been so concerned about how I look and how I sound, it's such a freeing experience, and it's really uncomfortable. I'll go up and do it maybe for like 3 or 5 minutes, but past that, I'm like, I'm really uncomfortable. It I can't get out of my head about it, but I'll allow myself those few minutes to do it. I've gotten to where I can do it a little bit longer here and there, but
Bring
yeah,
up
there's
emotion?
something.
Does it make you wanna
It
cry?
does. It bring up, yes. Oh my god, I can be dancing to a really joyful song and just bawl my eyes out, because it's the f- I that the freedom, that expression without control. It goes back to the child who thought that I had to control everything. There's so much grief there, actually. And so to touch upon that grief, it's like, whew, I can like dip a toe in and like come out of it. Um, but I've held myself there in moments where I've just let it overtake me, and it's a powerful practice. It really is.
Have you ever heard of Tarantumi? It's a workout. It's not crazy workout, but it's a little bit of a workout. But it's like 45 minutes to an hour, and you just like play one song. There's one song that plays, and you just do the same movement through it. And eventually sometimes you add like like your breath
Right?
and stuff to it. And then they do a heart opening at the end. And I would say about 80% of the time that I've done one of the classes, I've like for sure shed a tear or cried or had
Oh,
some big
wow.
epiphany. But it's this cool blend of being able to just move your body for physical, activity and strength and flexibility, but then also pairing that up with the voice and stuff and music and the verbal prompting that they do with you, like
Oh, cool.
what's in there? What are you coming up against? Like, what's the story you're telling yourself? All that kind of stuff just starts to like really ruffle it up. I don't know.
Ooh, I like it.
It just came to mind because I feel like I've had so much cool stuff come through that.
I'm gonna have to try that. What was the other thing you said you did at the festival?
Yeah. It was called Fluent Body, but I'm
Fluent
not
Body.
really sure if that's like a class that you can do. I think it's just this sweet, I think she was maybe Italian. I'm not sure, but she was
Oh, got it. Okay.
leading us with music and, kind of allowing us to flail around, sometimes really vigorously, sometimes really soft,
Right.
sometimes with our eyes open. We gazed at each other. It was 6 girls, and at one point in time, we're literally deadpanning, staring at each other, and that
Oh,
kind of
wow.
stuff. That kind of stuff's
That's
interesting.
intense. That's
Yeah.
fun.
You love dancing, though, right? I feel like I've heard about
No,
this.
so that's no, that's been a real rub for me, like a place where I've been really uncomfortable. I used to dance as a child, and
Uh-huh.
then I don't remember who it was. It doesn't really matter, but someone told me that I was a better singer than I was a dancer when I was young, and it kind of stunted that piece of me. And also growing up in front of the public eye, and like I said, people wanting to keep you a kid, and then you're growing into your own body as a woman, and then being sexualized, and it was just I kind of was like, I don't feel comfortable in my skin, and dancing with all of that just felt, yeah, it felt like very uncomfortable. And so that's been one of the areas, like I said, where I've really learned to be gentle with myself. And like I said, if I get in there for one song, it's like, okay, I that's an edge for me. So
I want to hear about then, some point down the line when you're like, I danced naked for an hour and there was a mirror and
I would it's funny because I love the full moon, and I literally have a deep desire to like go out naked under the full moon and dance. So I think I need to. I think you saying that is my cue to
I'm
like do that next time.
speaking things into existence. I mean,
Yes,
there's
exactly.
something obviously happening in the quantum field. I'm curious your thoughts about it. Like the fact, I don't know if it happens to you, but sometimes it does, like something like that you have that thought about doing that. But I have no idea why I said that. I don't really
Mhm.
know why those words came out of my mouth. But this field around us is
Mm.
holding all the information. And I sometimes think that that's the information from the field, just sort
Mhm.
of coming into my awareness in some level that feels like mine, but it's not mine. It's in the field, and it's partly it's something to do with our conversation. But it's fascinating to think about how much we don't know is going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's insane, and I think it's beautiful. Like we're all messengers for one another. I mean, I think that's why relationship is so important because like this is why I love these conversations. I end up walking away with something like that. And I think if you're open, you know, as a creator, we're all creators. But I also, I am such a it's creativity is such a huge part of my job and writing and creating, and so I'm constantly open to life. Like I'm constantly looking and listening and um, for inspiration, and so I'm really I feel like I'm really tapped into that, once we open ourselves up to all of the signs and things that come into our awareness, I feel like it's there all the time, And I mean, it is there all the time. It's just once we open ourselves up, we now we're focused. Our focus is we're receptive to it. So, um, yeah, I find I get messages all the time from conversations and billboards and whatever I may come in contact with, and I'll even listen to songs sometimes that I've listened to a gazillion times, and all of a sudden a line will pop out that's, that I hear differently, and I'm like, oh, that's the message. It's,
Mm.
I guess I kind of wonder, is it the universe talking to us, or are we creating it? Are we making meaning out of it? And I think it's kind of both, and um, because we are the universe, so I guess we're talking to ourselves, really. Um, so yeah, I feel you. I think there's so many times something like that will happen where you kind of like don't know why you're saying something, and it'll instantly resonate with someone, and I think it's so beautiful. I mean, that to me, like, that mysterious piece of life, I think is so cool.
You grew up Southern Baptist, isn't that right?
Mhm,
Religion, and then there's
mhm.
spirituality. And I mean, I don't know if they're different, but I would call them different. Would you?
Yeah, for me, spirituality is my own relationship to something bigger than me. And organized religion is, once again, it's kind of that inward to outward
Yeah.
um, piece. I feel like organized religion. I love the teaching of so many religions. I think are beautiful. The actual like essence of them.
Mhm.
Um, and I've learned so much from religion. And um, I feel like my own connection with, God, universe, my own spirituality, and how I allow it to flow through me into this world is the most powerful
Mhm.
connection to have.
I was just wondering if there was sort of like a point in time where you felt like you were torn between these sort of like the ideology of religion and the so much of the weight that comes with it, shame and being wrong or being too sexual or objectified or any of those things. And if there was like a transition point where you were able to recognize that box that religion has, and then what it looked like to step into something different that was hopefully perhaps maybe more freeing or
Mhm.
um accepting and had a different framework than the way
Yeah,
you grew up. Did you grow up really religious?
I did. My mom was very religious, and I had, from the time I was like 6, I used to have arguments with my mother about like, this makes no sense. Like, certain parts of this, like, why are only 100 and something thousand people going to heaven, but there's like millions and millions of people on this earth? Like, why is everybody else so bad? Like, that fundamental piece of it, I just could not wrap my head around. I'm
Mhm.
like, I just don't believe that. And um, I ran really far away from it, and kind of just exploding, like, didn't felt connected. I think I probably felt more connected to soul, to God through music. That was, the most instant way for me to experience that connection. And then at 30, I think is really when I started to do breath work. That was kind of my first into experiencing, um, gosh, I guess self, like a deeper piece of self, to soul, to where I was really conscious. I was starting to become conscious of that connection. And
Mhm.
so from that moment on, for the last 10 years, it's really been unwinding and undoing so much toxicity around, like you said, sexuality, um, original sin, all the things. And, my album, I mean, God's work, my new album is like literally that's what it was. That was the undoing. Like, that was, I talk about so much of that on the record. And so it,
Mhm.
and that's the thing, like, I'm really of the mindset, like, to each their own. Everybody finds their own way. And I have no um, ill will, or, against anything or anyone when it comes to religion. I choose differently, and I think my own love for myself
Mm.
has been more freeing than anything. And like I said, that internal knowing. I was so connected. We all are, as children, to our inner voice. so connected. And then, so much gets put onto us from, our parents and society, and we lose that connection. And so for me, these last 10 years have really been about coming back home to that connection, and that being the driving force for my own spirituality and my own life.
Hmm. Do you think that you're kind of the way, your music tied you to a little bit more of that religion, just being a little, more country, a little bit more keeping you kind of tethered to that image?
When you're kind of come into this, spotlight as like America's sweetheart, it's, people really have that image of you, and then you're like, but I can be a sweetheart, but that's not all of me. Like, and you start to like, I mean, we all wear a mask to some degree, until we could become aware of it and decide to take it off. And for me, like, being authentic and recognizing that mask and all the everything I was trying to uphold for other people or for the world,
Mhm.
and their expectations. Like, as soon as I started to let that go, uh, it feels like a weight has come off my shoulders. It's, to be authentic and allow, you know, all the, like I say, the complexities of me to be present. It's been hard. I mean, I think I used to feel so other, like, superhuman in so many ways. I never had stage fright. Like, I never thought about it. And then I guess my mid-20s, when I started, or late 20s, when I started to allow that mask to fall, I realized I started to really recognize my humanity. And which is, at first, it's like, oh shit, like, I don't have that armor anymore. And how am I supposed to be superhuman and also human at the same time?
Mhm.
And there's so much fear that came up there. And then I started to allow my humanity. Like, I started to allow that to inform not only my life but my art. And it I feel like now I can walk into a room knowing how great I can be, and also knowing how vulnerable and fragile I am, and allow all of that to express itself, whether in an interview or whether on stage. Like,
Mm.
I find that is the superpower, to allow all of you into the space.
That's vulnerability, because most people are
Yeah.
trying to hide that side, right? They're like, "Oh, I'm gonna be tough," or I'm the soft, delicate one, so I'm not gonna be tough."
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be, or I'm not gonna cry because that's weak, or I'm not gonna be goofy and dance around because I'm being bad and I should be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Since the title of the album is God's Work, um, what is God?
I think it's that field, and I think we know it. At least my experience is that I know God when I allow it to work through me,
Mhm.
when I'm receptive to it. Um,
Mm.
I think we are. I mean, I say that on my album, like, we are God's work, and it's, we are creation itself, and we are creators, and
Yeah.
um, in right relationship to that, I believe, we are the vessel to be worked through, and so I feel like the receptivity of that field, um, that everything is created from. I feel like that field is God.
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever thought about it that way, but when you said field earlier, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the that and it's always there,
It's
and it's
omnipresent. It explains omnipresence,
yeah,
the field.
totally.
It's not like some guy that's up in a cloud sitting on a throne
No,
that's like, "Oh, hang on, I got a call. I gotta go down." It's like, it's
right.
just an I think of it.
It's energy,
That's
yeah.
why when you said field, I'm like, yeah, and I think it's a certain frequency as well. It's like,
Mhm.
it's one of those magical moments of transcendence in a meditation, or in breath work, or in a relationship, or maybe when someone meets their baby and they give birth, or whatever it is, there's some frequency that's beyond our normal frequency. It's not inaccessible. It's just hard to always be there because there's so much that pulls us down here in this reality.
Well, I mean, that's why we're here, right? Though, too, and to experience everything else, because otherwise, I feel like we are that frequency,
Yeah.
and so we'll return to it. I believe,
Take
and
us
we
on the
can connect with
spaceship,
it.
right? Take me on the spaceship.
Exactly, exactly.
But first you got to go
Sometimes,
into the wild, of course.
exactly, exactly. Well, that's the thing.
Moms.
I feel like I went through such a period of time where I did connect with that. Well, when I connected with it so intensely, I'm like, I don't want to return. I don't want to return. And then I'm like, but there is so much goodness here. And, we get all the flavors, we get all the flavors here. And I think being able to ground in this humanity and still access that and then bring that here is I feel like that's kind of the game. I mean, really. I mean, like when I know I'm in that, I mean, I feel like we're in that now, actually. Like I feel when we were talking about it, I got chills. I was like, and to me, I know I've touched into something that's
Mm.
important. And when you can bring that through you, it's such a beautiful thing. Like that to me that's joy to me.
When you said in the field and when you started speaking about God, my whole body got goosebumps.
Yeah.
And that's always such a sign
Mm,
that it's like basically to me, the universe,
it's the
God
knowing.
frequency is saying, yes,
Yeah,
yes, this is
totally.
true. This is true. There's such a mission to sort of evolve consciousness, to bring worldwide peace, to live in joy and elation, or always be happy to some degree. But I question, and you were just starting to sort of really kind of get into that. So that's why I thought we'd take a little bit
Mhm.
of a dive in a little further. W- I really question what is innate to our human reality. Like what is this game that is just not going anywhere? And without it, it wouldn't be the same, and we wouldn't have, the more pain I feel, the more joy I feel too. Like
Mhm.
there's a polarity within me that expands with my experiences. And um I wonder, from your perspective, with all this sort of spiritual, positive movement, what do you think is really needs to stay that's challenging as far as being a human?
Oh, I think it all stays. I don't
Yeah.
think anything gets completely excavated.
No.
I don't think there's an end goal. Um, I think it all is it all is purposeful. Do we have to suffer as much as we do? Probably not.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like it's all purposeful, and I mean, could you think about like never feeling pain again? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of I- if I did never feel pain again, I
Mhm.
that's sad to me.
Did you there was a great show called The Good Place with um Kristen Bell and Ted Danson, and anyway, it was basically about going to heaven, and when they actually really did make it to heaven, sorry if you haven't watched it, but you want to, it's a few years old. When you really get to go to heaven, there you got everything you wanted immediately at the any you thought about it and a door would open and you're in Paris.
Mm,
You thought about it and you'd have an ice cream cone in your hand. And everybody was kind of like brain dead muted when they got there
right.
because there's no when you can have everything that you want at any point in time and there's no negative emotion, like there's no purpose. Like there needs to be a transition at some point in time, or a challenge at some point in time. So once they got given the doorway to be able to fully exit and return to essentially source, or the ethers, or to a frequency, they gave purpose to their life, and they started checking off the list of all the cool things that they wanted to do in the world. And so if we just lived happy all the time, How would we know
Yes,
happy without it? It's like
exactly.
like meditating on death. It's like, if you didn't die, what value does life have? So if you didn't
Totally.
have pain, what value would joy have, and
Hmm.
love and happiness, if you didn't, because you don't know the opposite. It's like
Yeah.
contrast seems fundamental to the universe.
Oh, I believe so. Absolutely. And it's, yeah, that's so powerful. I mean, I just to think about not having, I mean, pain has, not that it's been the only thing that's informed my life and my art, but it's such a huge part of it. And the connection of, the human experience. Like, just to touch on Spaceship, you mentioned that,
Yeah.
I, released that song and that video recently, and the stories that have been shared with me from people about their own depression and their own loss it's been overwhelming. And it's just, when you touch into the human connection or human experience like that, and it connects people so deeply, um, to have that, to have the array of those emotions, for me as an artist, like, I couldn't even imagine being without it. Like, it's it's where I draw everything from, from joy and pain, hope and sensuality to rage. Like, it's just, it is, it's all the colors to which, I paint the canvas with. So it's such a huge part of our humanity. And so I think, yeah, I don't think the purpose is to ever rid ourselves of any of that. I think, for me, it's just like, how can I flow with it all? And do I have to, sometimes the suffering I feel like is when we, latch on to, for me, with my negativity bias, those like really darker, heavier emotions, and I don't let go of it. And so it's been for me learning about how to allow it to move through me, and also to move with it. And then when joy comes, not being afraid of it, because I'm afraid I'm going to go back into that pain, you know? So it's, for me, like, just the allowance of joy has been really challenging, because I'm so afraid to touch it, because I know eventually it changes into something else. And so just that flow is a
Mhm.
constant practice for me.
I just had something come through, and tell me if this resonates. Where it feels to me like a lot of music is written through pain, and especially I think some of the most powerful music. And I have this belief that music, but anything, but music is an easy one to use in as an example, because it invokes emotion. But not all of it does. The stuff that's
Mm,
true and the stuff that's real carries a certain frequency and energy
absolutely.
that resonates, as opposed to something that's written for someone that didn't have, it's just kind of words, is like a arrangement of words that rhymes and makes sense, whatever. It tells some kind of a story, but there's not necessarily so much of a deep, like, emotional truth imprint to it. So feels to me like there's a lot of amazing stuff comes through the pain, and that essentially, as an artist, your gift to people is the pain, but the gift is through the pain, but the gift is connection,
Mhm,
because
yeah,
through that emotion, you're literally connecting yourself to all these people. So as you talk about Spaceship and how many great stories have come from it, now you're not alone anymore. You're not just, it's not just
yeah,
you wanting to jump on the spaceship because you feel alone. You're like, wait a second. Holy shit, there's a lot of people that feel like this. So
mm,
through your pain, you go through like the highest pain and perhaps some of the highest joy, because you now are connected and plugged in to so many people. And
yeah,
connection and community is also, I think, fundamental. Like, we operate like cells in a body.
mhm,
We're all in coherence, and we're working, and we're fully functional, and we're together, everything's going great. You split off and bad things happen. So
right,
that kind of is what came through. And I just think, I just want to say thank you, because like the bravery to go through not only the feeling, but then putting pen to paper and like
mm,
actually giving words to it then to
Yeah. I
with
mean, I'm
people?
giving words to so many experiences, and it helps me feel less alone. Like, loneliness has been such a key core part of, I think, all of our experiences, if we're honest. But for me, it's been something I've struggled with for a long time, and music has been my way to connect, to communicate, and um, my benchmarker of success these days is, did I move someone? And when I see people, I mean, I'll cry thinking about it. When I see that coming back at me, it was like, yeah, that's why I do that. And I thought the other day, I'm like, I'm no longer. I don't feel like I'm a singer anymore. Of course I am, but at the same time, I feel like I'm a communicator. I'm someone who heals myself and helps others heal. And I
Mm.
feel like music is just one avenue in which I do that through. And I think, I used to put all my eggs in that basket, and it's like, I sing, and it's like, well, no, that's just a frequency in which I used in order to help other people. And so you're right. I mean, there's so much art that is created, for, look, people are in it for the money. It's like, we're creating, and honestly, to numb people out a lot of the time. And sometimes my music can be a little hard to swallow these days, because it doesn't numb you out. Like, it puts you in it. And
Mhm.
there's plenty of artists on throughout, all forms of art, that sometimes we need that, and it serves its purpose. But I think for me, I know where I stand, who I want to be as an artist, and that's someone who helps people, feel. So it's a gift. It's a gift, and I'm grateful to be able to have that gift in this lifetime. It's a really cool gift.
Mm. Yeah, it's a big gift. It's a yeah, it's a big gift, and it carries a lot of challenges too.
Yeah.
I love this idea that, as we're talking about sort of like healing and connection, like a healing game, it's an inside job, right? I mean, you
Hmm.
can't fix anyone, nobody can fix you necessarily. But I do love this framing an idea that we are hurt in relationship, so our ultimate healing comes in relationship.
Hmm.
So I'm curious about some relationships in your life that you feel like have healed original wounds.
I'll have to say, Mindy's probably one of my biggest
Mm.
relationships, that has helped heal wounding for me.
Mm.
Just to have a woman in my life who I think fully sees me, and um, that has been there for me through this whole healing journey and this new chapter of it.
Mm.
Um, she's just an incredible human being, and
She
so
loves you,
that's
loves
been,
you, loves you, loves
I
you.
I love her. She's awesome.
Mhm.
I would say that she's been one of my biggest, and newest, as of recent. I think my husband has been a huge healer for me. Um, Once again, someone who sees me, someone who's seen, oh, the worst moments in my life, and still loves me. And I still, to this day, I'm like, the little, the one, the piece of me that still doesn't love all of me,
Mm.
will ask him, "Do you love me?" Like, and and when I do that, I go, "Ooh, I know I'm not loving myself." Like,
Mm.
that instantly, I'll go, It's not even a question you need to answer. It's a question that I need to answer. And so he's really provided, a loving space for me to get messy, and pushes all the buttons and triggers of my life, and that's what's so beautiful, is that we've committed to staying in it. Like, it's so easy when in relationship, all those triggers get triggered, and you're like, oh, I'm out. And so I think we've been doing a lot together, and we both really committed to staying in those moments. And my manager, who's also, one of my best friends and my creative partner, Daryl Brown, who created the whole record with me, he's been incredibly healing for me. And my assistant, she's part of my management team. she's also been incredibly healing for me. Like I have these relationships around me that are very healthy, and I've, a lot of my relationships have been because I've been, I'm constantly working. I have these kind of combined relationship of business and friendship, and um I've had many relationships fall apart because of that I didn't know how to handle it and how to set boundaries. And now I feel like I have these opportunities with these incredible people in my life where we all set healthy boundaries. We can support each other in friendship and in business. And it's giving me the opportunity to do like all of the beginning of my life in business, like all over again in a new way. And so that's been that's been beautiful and that's part of me stepping into my womanhood too. It's like, oh, I don't have to be afraid of these relationships. I can have them be multifaceted, and it all stems from how I'm holding myself in the relationship and how I, am willing to show up, willing to set boundaries, willing to know my needs, and express those. And yeah, I'm learning. Relationships are hard for me, like very, very hard for me. But if I think about my list of all the ways in which I've grown,
How old were you when you started again?
I was 11 when I got my record deal, and I
Yeah,
was 13
almost
when Blue came
30
out. So I was
years
so
of going, going, going. So,
yeah,
okay, where do you see like, where do things move forward? What lights you up? I've heard that you love learning, like I love learning. Maybe a certain Mindy told
I
me that.
do.
Um, and
Yeah,
I understand that obsessive, insatiable
Mhm.
drive to consuming and understanding, and whether it's getting healthier, being smarter, or whatever it is. I have that too. So where does it go? Because I feel like where you're at in your life, and with this album, and with the some how symbolic it is for you to sort of get free, is what it feels like. I'm using, these are my words, in so many different aspects, because there's so much variety of messaging within the album, and so much different sound within the album even.
Mhm.
um like, this is where you, from here on, you only do what you want to do. Like, that's what I
Yeah,
feel for you very
yeah.
strongly, is that the only thing that you do from here on out lights you up. And
Mhm.
so what are some of those things? Like, what are your secret hobbies that we don't know about, that might take shape someday in a different way?
Yeah.
Or
I
what's
create candles actually.
what?
I do. I create candles and they're all frequency based. So I actually chant over the candles and we record chants at specific frequencies and as we play them over them as they're drying and so that encodes it into the wax. And so it becomes this whole I had this epiphany one day, like in the middle, right at the beginning of COVID actually, and I was like, no, it was before that, a couple years before that. And I'm like, this I was reading so much on frequency and
Yeah.
how everything's frequency and how everything can be affected by frequency. And I'm like, wait, I could maybe, and I love candles, I love smell, like scent is it's such a game changer for me, a state changer. And so I just had this idea one day that I could create, and waxes, all records are just a wax mold, and so
Really?
records are like the original, printing of that is just a wax mold, and so basically you're recording sound into wax, and so it's like, how could I incorporate all of this? So I've been playing around with it for a few years, and I really want to get that, like the business up and running next year. We throughout COVID, that's basically what my husband and I did, was create candles, and I stopped this year for a moment because I've just been so busy, and but I really want to get that up and running, and it's super fun. I love creating all the fragrance for it. It's a
Mm.
blast. So I think that I also, one of my gifts is scent, and so I love blending random stuff together that no one would ever blend together, and it's like, to me scent is like music, and so I
Mhm.
love it. It
Information.
like gives me, it gives me these feel. It's like a feeling. So yeah, that's one of my little hobbies. And I have a real purpose, I think, with my music. And it's, I think this album speaks so much to that purpose of helping people feel and, and moving people and moving myself. I mean, I've recorded music that I don't even sing anymore sometimes because I'm like, I did that because someone wanted me to. And I promised myself, I think in my late 20s, I would never do that again. And that's just like, expanded. But it is about creating things that, help to touch people. And I did a chant record in 2020. I'm working on my second chant record now. I don't know. I don't know where it all goes. I mean, I think, like I said, I think that music is just one avenue for what I, want to help people with. I have my podcast that I dip in and out of.
Which is
I
amazing.
love talking about this stuff. Thank you. I love talking about this stuff. I love, I'm sure I'll do like for as much as I speak on stage, public speaking is terrifying for me, but I know it's the next thing that I want to do.
By the
So
way, you can
yeah,
have speaking engagements where it's just Q&A. Yeah.
that's a good, thank you for saying that. Maybe I'll ease in that way.
Yeah.
I did Lewis House had an event that I did.
Yeah,
He
he's
wanted
good.
me to come speak and he's like, well, just come. I want you to like push your boundaries. I want you to do like, just speak for like 10 minutes and then we can do a Q&A. I'm like, okay, I can do that.
Perfect.
So, I did, I went and once you get me talking, I don't shut up, and I've learned. And I also chanted, like I did this whole speech into a chant and had everybody chant with me. And then we did a Q&A. It was so fun. And after that, I was so high after that from that experience. I'm like, oh, I need to be doing more of this. So it will happen.
Yeah. I gave you the yes.
Yes.
Cool. Well, we'll be watching and smelling.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
singing.
Yes.
I love it. Well, congrats on everything. Congrats on the new
Thank
album.
you.
Congrats on the candle line that's on its way because you've sent that
Yes.
out to the universe.
Absolutely.
And
No pun intended. I've sent it out.
thank you for sharing. Like you have a lot to share and your energy connects people, not just through music, but through your words, which is, probably what you're feeling on stage and what's happening in this interview. And then what's happening when people listen to it. It's really powerful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.